Good morning, Jesse. How are you?
Good morning, boys. I am doing well. We are almost at a new month because I think Cub fans would like to turn the page on June. I think you guys would agree with that.
13-13, I believe, in the month of June. Yep. But I did a little research, Jess. The 2016 Cubs, pretty good team. They were
they're average.
5-15 June 20 to July 9. I think people forget that, and they had a losing month of July despite adding Chapman at some point in that month, and then they steadied the ship and went on and won the World Series. So are you panicked at all about what you're seeing from the Cubs, or part of a long season?
No, long season for sure. Yankees, Mets, Phillies, all in the last month, basically 500. In fact, the Mets and Phillies were a couple games under. And then there's teams like the Brewers who went 21-9 and nearly caught the Cubs. Fortunately, the Rockies had this nice comeback late last night, or late in the game yesterday to beat them because Milwaukee's been on a run. So you have your ups and downs. I know I sound like a broken record. I've said this for years on the air. I don't look at the team name on the front of the jersey in terms of opponent. I look at when you're playing them. When you're playing them. The Cubs just finished 26 in 27 days. Every road game was played without a day off in between. In other words, just this past week, they traveled from St. Louis to Houston without a day off. 3-team city earlier in the month without a day off. I'm telling you, early on, and Craig mentioned this last week, we used up our days off. Remember, they had a bunch of days off early because they went to Japan, and now they were used up, and they go 13-13 in June. You bring up a good point about 2016. The Cubs are no better than the Dodgers, Phillies, Mets. Of course they were going to have a moment where it was a little wonky, and they just went through it. I will stake something on the fact that July will be better. Off day today, off day next Monday. After the All-Star break, they have 2 or 3 off days on Thursdays. Things will even out a little bit. You just have to hope Milwaukee evens out a little bit when they go through their tough stretch. So, yeah, no panic at all, Cap.
Yeah, there's no panic about the Chicago Cubs, but I will say, Jesse, against really good pitching from the Astros, Pete Armstrong, 0-for, not good. How do you characterize what he's been going through as of late?
Yeah, I mean, it's the lefties that are getting him. 186 against left-handed pitching, 205 on base percentage, something like that. We know he doesn't take a lot of walks. This is why he's batting 5th against lefties. I still have people screaming at me, why is Swanson 4th? There's no great option, I guess, against the lefty because, frankly, they're not hitting lefties the way they should. They're 11-13 when a left-hander starts. 11-13. Think about this team's 14 over. They're 2 under when a lefty starts, in part because PCA isn't hitting lefties very well, and Swanson isn't even hitting lefties well. Counsel mentioned, well, traditionally he has, but he's not right now. The bottom of the order is not hitting. Seiya Suzuki is hitting lefties well, and, of course, Kyle Tucker hits everybody well, but not enough guys are hitting lefties well. When they go to Justin Turner, he's not hitting lefties. John Purdy, their bench isn't great. Matt Shaw's not hitting. So there's a little bit of a moment there against left-handed pitching, sort of led by PCA in a lot of ways because you expect more out of them, and that's one big thing, Jay Hood. And also, Josh Hader pitches late in the game, against Pete Armstrong. See you later. He struck out in the 9th inning last night. So it's the lefties that are getting to him, Hoodie, more than anything.
Jesse, in terms, I saw your text or your tweet, I should say, that you'll know the Cubs are serious if they go add a back of the bullpen closer style guy to replace Palencia. What has Palencia done to not keep that gig? Would it be better to add a high end starter and then a setup guy? Let's assume they get David Bednar or a reasonable facsimile of him. Does he have to close for you to be happy, or no? He could be an 8th inning guy.
Yeah, so let me address that because that was a clip that Marquis sent out. I did their podcast, and they just sent out one little clip. And, of course, it's a half-hour podcast.
That's what the media does.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's fine. But I want to state clearly the priority is starting pitching. Let's start with that. And I'll get to your bullpen thing because I have a good question for you guys. Let's start with that. They are, at least if you use ERA, by far the worst starting rotation in the division. They rank 23rd in ERA at 4.30. Of course, a lot of that achieved without Shota Imanaga, so his return should help. But I mean, they are the Brewers and the Reds are not looking for starting pitching. and the Cardinals may not either. The Cubs are absolutely looking for starting pitching. Now, it's 2025. You can live down in the bottom third and still be a good team. The Dodgers, who are, of course, the Dodgers, they're in the bottom third in starting pitching because they're all hurt, and they're in first place. The Blue Jays are in the playoff hunt. They're worse than the Cubs. So you can survive, but we know they're looking for starting pitching. That is absolute priority. They're looking for bench help, probably right-handed help because Turner hasn't been that guy. That's also somewhat of a priority. But starting pitching is first and foremost. So the point I was making is when we get down to July 30th, we will know in the front office's mind if they're really serious if they pull a 2016 and trade for a closer like they did when they acquired Aroldis Chapman. So that brings me to this question for you, because I got a lot of pushback about, oh, you can't replace Palencia. Why would you do that? So here's my question to you. When they traded for Aroldis Chapman on July 25th, 2016, what do you think the closer at that moment, Hector Rondon's ERA was? July 25th, 2016.
I'm going to say 228.
350?
Aroldis Chapman achieved his 18th save on July 24th. He gave up a run. His ERA was 195. 195 when they traded for Aroldis Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can't stress this enough to Cub fans. June saves are not October saves. I love everything Palencia brings to the table. And if they went to October with just Palencia, I could be, okay, let's roll the dice. But if they're really serious, and this is the irony of it all, Cap, you mentioned Bednar, they should probably get a lefty to pair with Palencia. You go out and get Aroldis Chapman again. You see what Aroldis Chapman is doing at 37 years old? He has a 1.32 ERA. He hasn't given up an earned run since late May. He went through the whole month of June without giving up an earned run. And this way, what you can do is, if the lefties come up in the eighth inning, you bring in Chapman, Palencia gets the ninth. If they come up in the ninth inning, you pitch Palencia in the eighth, and you bring in Chapman for the ninth. You can live without Chapman or another closer, but trust me when I tell you that experience in October matters. Rondon had 29 saves in 2014, 30 saves in 2015, a 1.95 ERA in 2016, and they replaced him because they wanted someone better in October.
Makes sense, because as I was telling Cap earlier, you're trying to solidify yourself in the postseason, but also the staying power in the postseason. Mm-hmm. So that means if you're trying to upgrade at third base, you're trying to upgrade your starting position, you want to make sure your 7th, 8th, and 9th are solid as well. This has been great. This has been new money that the Cubs were able to find with Palencia, because you didn't know he could be able to do that. But at the same time, if you're serious about, again, not just getting there, Cap, solidifying it, you make sure you get the players that you need to get their veteran players to be able to knock it down and get yourself into the playoffs. So I totally understand that, Jesse. It's a good point.
And as I tell you, as a reporter, if they traded for Chapman 10 years later, what a storyline, or 9 years later, what a storyline that would be.
Yeah.
And if it's not Chapman, there's other guys out there. I mean, the Twins, are falling out of it. They have an amazing closer. You would really shorten the game if you paired Palencia with another guy. And I have nothing against Keller or any of the or Pomerantz. It's fine, but October is different. It's different, especially in the ninth inning. But that's a wish list. But you start with the starting pitching. There's no doubt they have to address that at some point here. But it's good to get Shota back. Those numbers should stabilize a little
By
bit.
the way, the Cubs bullpen has not allowed a run since last Sunday. Not a run.
It's amazing. Flexen, by the way, is the one guy, I think you would agree with this, Cap. I feel like Council's probably misused him a little bit. Like they should have given him a little bit more high leverage a little bit sooner. Mm-hmm. But Pomerantz has been great. Flexen's been great. They've all been really good. It's just that can they continue? You can't make a move after August 1st. So they will certainly add there, and they will hopefully add in the rotation because they have to. Now, Tyon was better yesterday. He was better, and maybe Council should have pulled him. I mean, he left a cutter up. That's what happens on pitch 106. You're tiring a little bit, and one of the best hitters in baseball got you. Maybe he should have been pulled earlier, but Tyon was certainly better.
They've given up one run. Sorry, Porter Hodge gave up one. Let me ask you real quick before we talk about the White Sox, who look like they have some very good young players. Of these guys, who's obtainable? Dean Kramer, Baltimore Orioles, Is there Seth Lugo, Kansas City Royals, Nathan Eovaldi, Texas Rangers. They're only 2.5 back in the wild card. Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen, Edward Cabrera, Miami Marlins. Of all those guys, is there a pitcher there that you go, other than telling me about Mitch Keller?
Yeah.
Is there, and Brian Hayes' numbers suck. Is there a guy there that you think they can get?
I think they can get Kelly or Gallen. Look what happened to the Diamondbacks. They got swept at home to the Marlins. By the way, the Marlins went and swept the Giants, then the Diamondbacks. So it tells you
they've won 7 straight.
Yeah, things happen, which is going to put a hold on any trade talk, because when you're playing that well, you can't rip apart your clubhouse chemistry. Even the Pirates just swept the Mets. So, we've got almost a full month we do have a full month to the trade deadline, exactly. So things are going to develop late. But I think the Diamondbacks are going to make a late decision and try to recoup something and trade Kelly or Gallen. They won't trade them both. They'll keep one and probably give a qualifying offer. Gallen's been terrible. He was bad this weekend again. I think Kelly would be the guy that I'd go after. World Series experience. So, yeah, I don't think the Rangers, with Bruce Bochy, and I don't think they're selling. I really don't. They're going to try to go for it. I think that you got to convince Mike Hazen, who Jed Hoyer worked with, to trade him one of those guys.
Any Sox news? Really like the start for the White Sox. Hauser's really been the guy. I really like what I've been seeing from him so far. And to beat the Giants 2 out of 3, Jesse, pretty good on the White Sox part.
No doubt. Like I said, the Giants came in a wounded animal and left a wounded animal. Great series. And what I like about them, and the difference in a lot of ways, is honestly all the young players. But late in the game, they're executing. Remember what I told you? Tommy Pham was so frustrated last year with the White Sox because they'd have a lead, and then the bullpen would give it up, and all of a sudden, instead of facing the C reliever, Pham has to face the closer. And his 5th at bat came against the closer instead of some crappy reliever. It's almost the opposite. The White Sox are executing late. They're not blowing leads. They're overcoming deficits. That galvanizes a team in the locker room, along with all these young players. Like Kyle Teal looks great at the plate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's growing. This is sort of the easy part of a rebuild, but at least it's going well. The harder part is to take those next couple steps, but you got to like what you're seeing there. And yeah, a guy like Hauser, if you could flip him for a prospect, great. And I talked to Getz last week. Like, there's got to be some guys left over pitching. If they don't hear what they want to hear in terms of the prospect return, they'll keep these guys and eat up some innings and go from there. So it's a good foundation they're playing from right now.
I know it sounds bad, Jesse, but I don't miss Luis Robert as much as he's given me joy as a Sox fan at times this year because he's been benched or marred with injuries. I just think that, again, he's not the future of the team. It's too bad he's hurt. But I've been seeing Taylor out there playing a good center field, had a good game, the 1-0 victory that the Sox had against the Giants. I just think that it's really about the future, the kids, more so than Luis Robert. And, again, in a position where he can't be traded. Here we are.
Not right now. Yeah. No. There's a chance they keep him. If the Sox will eat some of Benintendi's numbers, they'd move him. But I think they like his veteran leadership in there. But it looks slowly but surely it's out with the old, right, in with the new. Benintendi and Luis Roberts' days are kind of numbered, whether it be a year or less than whatever it is. So, yeah, I mean, they're playing well without him, and they just have that young energy you want to see out of a rebuilding team.
Jess, have a great day. We'll talk to you later in the week.
You got it, guys. Be well. Take care.
Take care.